Well, my name is Gabe Spateros. I'm going to be 80 in June. I'm a Korean War veteran, and I started scuba diving back in 1956. When I came out of service, my brothers and I, we bought a sailboat, put it in Lake Michigan, and we figured that one guy could run a restaurant and two guys go sailing. It so happened I was on duty one time in a restaurant and I seen a couple eating pizza. And I'd go up to them and say, hello, my name is, how do you like the food? And I asked them what were they going to do the next day. And they said, well, we're going on a picnic. And I said, oh, a picnic, you know, you have hot dogs, hamburgers, forest preserve. And the fella mentioned the word scuba. Now, I had never heard this word scuba before in my life. And he said self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. So I horned in on their picnic. They came pick me up the next day. They took me out to Lake Geneva. And the fellow's name was Art, and he put the fins on me, he put a weight belt on me, put the tank on my back, gave me a mask and a snorkel. He said, now Gabriel, there's only one thing I'm going to tell you to do. Don't stop breathing. I said, that's silly. Who wants to stop breathing underwater? Well, I know now it's very important. So we go into the water, and I can't breathe. And I come up, I said, Art, I can't breathe. He said, did you turn the tank on? Well, who knows about turning a tank on? So we went down, and it just was a whole new world. I mean, you had the sea life, and you had the flora underneath, and it was just, I was taken away with it. And all of a sudden, I couldn't breathe again. I went up, I said, Art, I can't breathe. He said, well, you've been down there a half hour. Well, now I could probably go over an hour and a half, you know. That started me on my scuba diving career. We formed the Water Vagabonds, which was about 10 guys, and we met at the restaurant, and I had a cascade system where the high pressure was 3,000 and the low pressure, whatever it was. And as we kept loading our tanks up, when it went zero, we called the company to bring us another tank and put it on the end. So we didn't need any compressors or any fancy equipment or anything. We made our own dry suits, and we made a little Hawaiian sling to spear fish, and it was the beginning of something that was completely new, and we were involved in it. And we joined with another bunch of dive groups, and we formed the Illinois Council of Skin and Scuba Divers. And with this Illinois Council, we formed the underwater recovery team where we go and help recover bodies or help the police department, whatever they needed. And when I got involved with that Illinois Council, we joined the Underwater Society of America. And the president of our Illinois Council was going to be president of the Underwater Society in 1962. So he said, Gabriel, as long as you're in the restaurant business and I'm going to be president, and we're going to have a convention in Chicago, why don't you be my chairman of my convention? I said, sure, there's no big deal. And then he mentioned that Italy was, Kresge, a fin manufacturer, was making a statue of Christ. They call it Christ of the Abyss in Italy. And they were going to donate that statue of Christ as a 9-foot bronze statue to the American divers and those who work and live at the sea and die in the sea, you know. I said, gee, that sounds great. I said, what kind of budget you got? He said, there is no budget. Well, I heard that before. So it just happened that I was making a trip to Europe, going on a wine tour, because I like to be a wine connoisseur. And I ended up in Genoa, and I met Kresge and a couple other his people, and they showed me the statue and what they were doing, and they said they'll have it ready by, you know, the middle of 1961. And I said, well, how are you going to get it to the States? He said, no, that's your business. You got to get it to the States. We're just making it and giving it to you. So I came home and I mentioned it to my pa. I said, geez, the Italians are making the statue of Christ, and we got to get it here to Chicago, but there's no money involved. And my pa said, well, we know somebody down at the Italian steamship line. Why don't you go down and visit with them and tell them what your problem is? So I made an appointment, and I went downtown and went into his office, and he said, Gabriel, sit down. Now just tell me, when do you want it? My father had already told him the whole story, and he didn't want to hear anything from me, just when, and don't tell me tomorrow, you know. So I said, no, the convention is in 62, in August of 62. As long as it's here by the 1st of August, we're set. He said, okay, it's all taken care of. So I walked out. Well, the beginning of August, I get a call. The statue's on its way down to Chicago. And I called the president and told a couple other people, and we went down to meet it at Navy Pier, and we took some publicity pictures, you know. And this was, I mean, a 9-foot bronze statue. It was really overtaking, with the hands up in the air looking up. And so we kept it at Navy Pier until the convention. Well, I had to bring it into the hotel and up to the banquet floor where we're going to have the banquet. So I went to the manager and I said, I got this 9-foot bronze statue that I want to dedicate at the diving banquet, and we got to bring it up to the 2nd floor. He said, well, we're a union house. As long as you get the union to carry it, we're okay. So I went to the union, and the union said, well, geez, that statue, that size, it'd be about a $1,800 job. We'll only charge you $900. Okay. Well, I didn't pay anything to bring it and store it. I wasn't going to pay $900 just to take it up 2 floors. One of the guys in my group was a package handler for TWA, and he was union. So I went to him. I said, how about you be my union guy to take care of the statue? He said, sure. So we went into the manager's office, and I said, here's my union guy. He's going to handle the statue. Fine, that's all. And I had plenty of young guys and healthy guys, and a friend of mine had a trucking company. He trucked it over to the hotel, and we brought it up in the elevator, and we put it in the banquet room, and I had a friend who was a florist, and he put flowers and everything around it, and my cousin was a reporter for the Daily News. That was back then. And he had a missionary guy who wrote the litany for it. So we had a litany, and we had the flowers and the statue, and it was a beautiful party and dedicated, and everybody had a lot of fun. But now I can't bring the statue back to the Italians. They're finished with me. And where am I going to do with the statue? Well, my friend at TWS said, bring it to O'Hara. We got a big hangar there. We'll stick it in the corner, and when you're ready to ship it to Florida, we'll do it. So we took it over to O'Hara, and now this is in August, and I'm thinking, how do I get the statue to Florida? Well, one of my customers was a member of the National Guard in Chicago, and he said, Gabriel, we've got planes flying to Florida all the time because there's that missile crisis in Cuba, and they're empty. We just put it on one of those planes and bring it down to Florida. I said, gee, that's terrific. So we took it from TWA and went over to the National Guard hangar, and there it stood. The crisis was over, the statue was still in the hangar. October, November, December, the statue's still in the hangar at National Guard. It's a winter night in December, and I'm working a banquet in tuxedo, snow outside. I get a call. There's a plane at O'Hara ready to pick up the statue. Well, I had told Florida what we were doing, and they found a Navy plane to come up here to pick it up and take it down to them. So I called Phil, the fellow the National Guard guy, and his wife said, his mother said, geez, Phil's with his fiance, and I don't know if I should give you her number. I said, you gotta give me her number, it's important. So she did, and I called the number, and a nice, pretty voice answered, hello, you know, cheerful. And I said, hello, this is Gabriel, I have to talk to Phil. And there was that dead silence, like somebody's gonna kill somebody. He says, Phil, there's a call for you. Oh, geez, I could feel the shivers going up my... Well, Phil got on the phone, and I told him the whole story. He said, but Gabe, I'm with my fiance, and it's snowing outside. I said, we gotta go. So, okay. So I called the rest of the guys in the crew, and we all met at the National Guard hangar. One of the guys knew how to use a forklift, and we put the statue on the forklift. And this is something like a 15-foot crate by 6 feet wide by 4 feet high. You know, it's a monster. And we put it on there so it would balance because the base is heavier than the head. And he picked it up, and it just didn't quite make the door because the hangar on the plane is about 15 feet off the ground and kind of on an angle. So we brought it down and rearranged it, and then when we did that, the weight was shifted. So I looked at Phil and I said, look, you're 200 pounds and I'm 200 pounds. We'll sit at this end of the crate, we'll balance it, and we'll take it up, and then we'll pull it onto the airplane, right? No problem there. So he said, okay, he agreed with me. I don't know why, but he did. And the guy took us up, and he shifted to get it into the door, and just when he did, the crate moved. And the tip of the crate caught inside the door. Otherwise, it would have gone down. And Phil looked at me, and he said, you know, Gabriel, we could have crashed. And I said, yeah, but Phil, we would have crashed with Christ, you know. So we pulled it onto the plane, tied it all down, went back on the forklift. The plane took off and went to Florida, and that was that. Not a dime. Everybody was so helpful, and everybody was so involved, and it was just a good bunch of people doing it. I've been diving then since then, but 3 years ago I got this macular degeneration. They determined I was legally blind, and I couldn't drive anymore. I couldn't read the newspaper or my mail. And the VA sent me to Hines VA Hospital. And when I'm there, I find out that there's a group of blind guys learning how to scuba dive. Now, what the blind guys want to do scuba diving? So anyhow, I joined with them. And I found out that this group, Diveheart, whoever it was, was teaching these guys how to scuba dive in tanks. And then they were taking them to Cozumel for a trip, And I said, geez, that's great, I'll go with them, So it was a free ride to Cozumel. And I got in with Diveheart and this blind group, and I was still in that depressed state because I just gotten into this condition. But being with those 6 guys, and they were so positive, not a negative word came out of them, that let's go, let's do it, what are we doing tomorrow? Here we are. And it was just phenomenal how they said, Gabriel, you can see a little bit, get out of that depressed state and start doing things, So then I found out about Diveheart, and Diveheart is that kind of group of people who dedicate themselves to helping others who have disabilities to make possibilities out of disabilities. And I've been diving with Diveheart and seen them do things where fellas in wheelchairs get into the water, and all of a sudden that fella has mobility and he's away from that gravity. And people without arms, they're swimming underwater, and it's just fantastic. It really is. And anything I could do to help Diveheart, I certainly would. And Jim and his group, they're so dedicated in helping us. Like now here in Cozumel, I got 2 gals that are helping me, underwater. And they do a lot of things that they don't have to, but I won't let them stop because I enjoy it, But I mean, I'm able to do a lot of stuff, but they figure I'm handicapped, so they want to help me. So I'll let them do it, and I think it's great, And I owe a lot to Diveheart and to Jim and his crew, and it's just terrific.
Set my spirit free, making possibilities and new realities for you and me.
Is my hair all right? Huh? Isn't that what they always say? Is your hair all right?